Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Miriam Sandler. It's great to have you here. I appreciate you coming, your busy schedule, to come hear a little bit about my life. I have a question. First of all, let's distribute that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if you wanted me to while you were
sure.
speaking.
It's a little bit of my scrapbook I'm sharing with you. Not everybody gets to see that, but I decided a couple years ago that I wanted to really share more of my story because I think that my process, I really think, inspires people to internalize the fact that just because you lived your life a certain way up until now doesn't mean you have to continue living your life that way. You can actually do a complete turnaround and make a lot of changes for the better. So I have a couple questions for you tonight. First of all, and please just call out because it's a small group of us tonight, who here has ever wondered what it would be like to sing in a stadium full of thousands of screaming fans?
No.
No, you haven't. You wonder that, right? Yeah? What do you think about that? You think it'd be cool? You think it'd be like, what?
Scary.
Yeah, nerve-wracking.
Scary, nerve-wracking.
Scary.
But like a dream, like, right?
Yeah.
Like, wow. Okay, and what about, anyone here ever think about traveling all over the world in private jets with superstars? Like,
No.
did anyone think about what that might be like?
Yeah, I
Of
don't think
course.
I know them at all. No.
No? Okay.
Not gonna use the word.
Okay. And what about being on TV on a regular basis and performing at the White House for the presidents, for two presidents, and for the Queen of England? And anyone ever like think about like what that would be like, or wow, what a cool gig? That'd be a cool gig, right?
Yeah.
Well, I had the opportunity to do all those things for about 9 years. But let me just tell you a little bit about how I actually got there, because I really did not plan on becoming a professional singer. It just kind of landed on my lap. I was raised in a completely secular home. The only reason I knew I was Jewish was because I had a Star of David on my necklace. And once or twice a year, we would go to temple, like maybe on Rosh Hashanah and maybe on Passover, and my dad used to fast on Yom Kippur, but not all the way through because he'd get headaches. So that was the extent of my Jewish upbringing, okay? When I was very young, my older sister, I'm the youngest of 3 girls, decided to go to Israel. Okay, listen to what happened to her. She was introduced to Israel, she traveled all over the country, and she fell in love with Judaism. And basically, she came back, this was in high school. She was in high school, I was, 6 years younger than her. She came back and she made the declaration, I am moving to Israel. And I was devastated. My big sister I loved so much, she was gone. She was out of here. To make a long story short, she became, actually, that event in my life became my first monologue in high school when I started acting, okay? I wrote a monologue about my sister leaving the house and moving to Israel, and every single time I performed it, I cried. So, needless to say, it was really a big loss for me. Well, my life progressed, and basically I was graduating high school and I had to figure out what I was doing next. So my drama teacher and my music choir teacher really encouraged me to audition at Florida State University. I was raised here in South Florida. And I prepared my monologue, I prepared my song, Okay, it was one from Cabaret. I don't know if anyone has ever heard that song. And the day of my audition, I lost my voice, and I had no cold, no allergies. It was like a complete fluke. Well, now I know why God did that to me. Because, of course, I didn't get accepted into FSU. I ended up going to Miami-Dade Community College. And there I had my first private vocal lesson with a teacher by the name of John Cicada. John Cicada, has anyone ever heard of John Cicada? Yeah, you have? Where have you heard of him?
He's a singer.
Yeah, he's a singer. Yeah, he's a great singer.
Yeah.
So he was my first teacher, and he was singing backgrounds at the time with Gloria Estefan. Has anyone ever heard of Gloria Estefan?
Yes.
Okay, no one's ever heard of Gloria Estefan. Okay, well, she's like a mega international superstar from South Florida. She's Cuban, and she did like a very successful crossover from like actually doing private parties. She started off with her private band doing bar mitzvahs. In South Florida, she would perform for the Cuban community. Does anyone know what Cubans are?
Cuban Jews.
Cuban Jews, right, which is what I am. So Gloria Estefan started off doing private bar mitzvahs for Cubans, okay, and she ended up becoming a mega superstar. And my teacher at Miami-Dade Community College was singing backgrounds for her. So he really believed in me. He started training me, and he recommended me to do a couple commercials, okay? So that was really how I started singing professionally, okay? Very intimidating, doing a vocal session with my teacher and another amazing professional in Miami in Spanish, okay? And in the studio, you can literally hear like everything. So I was a real newbie, and it was very scary, but thank God it was the beginning of a very successful career. I started meeting other professionals in the music industry in South Florida. I became recommended to many different types of shows, and eventually through John Cicada, I met Gloria Estefan. Gloria Estefan started hiring me to do background vocals for her touring and her shows, and we ended up going all over the world, singing like for stadiums, for, like I said, 2 presidents. I met President George Bush Sr., I met President Clinton, I performed for the Queen of England, and it was really, how can I say now when I look back, it was awesome. It was really awesome. I remember being on stage and just looking out at the sea of heads, and just thinking to myself, like, wow, like, how did I get here? Like, wow, this is like a dream come true. I was like early 20s at this point. By the way, I should probably back up. From Miami-Dade Community College, John really wanted me to continue my college degree, so he recommended I go to University of Miami. He prepared me for my audition there. I sang a Whitney Houston song. And thank God, it was amazing. I went to the jazz vocal program there, which is a world-renowned program at University of Miami. The best musicians in the world. Awesome place, beautiful, amazing. John Cicada actually went there. So that's how I knew about it, and he really wanted me to go there. So right when I graduated University of Miami, John's career was taking off. He was singing backgrounds for Gloria, but then the Estefans and the record label wanted to promote him as a recording artist, and then he asked me to sing backgrounds for him. So John was really like my foot in the door, so to speak. And that's how, through performing with John, I met Gloria. I also did a whole bunch of different gigs for a ton of other performing artists. Like, I did one of James Brown's albums. Does anyone know who James Brown is?
Mm-hmm.
It's a generational.
You guys are a little younger on the side, right? That's cool, that's cool. So James Brown is actually like a soul train R&B legend, okay? Like if you Google him, like he's enormous. And the funny thing is that he had just gotten out of jail. And they hired me and another white girl because we sounded black. So that was like really funny. Anyway, so it was, pretty unforgettable, that gig. I also performed for another artist by the name of Julio Iglesias. Has anyone ever heard of him? Okay, maybe his son Enrique. So I performed with the dad, who was really like, in comparison to his son, he was like a mega superstar. Like literally very famous in many different continents. And it was a whirlwind with him. We traveled really mostly Central and South America, Spain, and I did a lot of recording sessions with him as well. So aside from these artists, I also did a lot of shows with different superstars like...
like Broadway?
No, I didn't do Broadway. Yeah, I did that in school. I did a lot of theater, musical theater. I loved it, but not professionally. No, it was kind of like a different avenue I took. It was really just like pop, straight up pop music. Latin pop music, that sort of crossover Latin America to English market, and that was my niche. So it was really amazing. I did shows with Bob Hope and Michael McDonald. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of these people. Celia Cruz is a salsa Cuban legend. She's gone now, but really probably the most famous salsa singer in Cuba, in all of the salsa world, as well as Tito Puente, who is a very well-known Puerto Rican percussionist. So it was really awesome to kind of hang out and become friends and travel with all these people. And they became my friends, right? Because we were on the road. So we were going from planes to buses, to, private jets. I mean, it was all over the place. I would say that probably the coolest couple TV shows that I did a lot of TV. We were on The Tonight Show quite a few times. Yeah, with Gloria. I did The Tonight Show at least 3 times with Gloria and twice with John. So that was cool being on TV, and it's really, I have to tell you, not as glamorous as it seems, because we did the Today Show. I had to basically wake up at 4 a.m. to get my hair and makeup done, and you can imagine how you sound and look at 4 a.m. But this was the life of a performer, and at first I have to say, it was awesome. It was a dream come true. I got to meet very wealthy, influential people in the world. I used to hang out with politicians and the sons of politicians and just all types of famous people that were around, because we were part of this entourage that would just travel all over and get special treatment. Well, I'll tell you what I started to notice very quickly. I started to really get, personal with a lot of these people that I was performing with and traveling with. And I started asking them questions about their personal lives and just really seeing what their lives were like. And unfortunately, it was really sad to see that their personal lives were like really a disaster. On the outside, the record label and the TV producers made everyone look beautiful, and everyone had their makeup and hair done and designer clothes bought for them, and everyone had their script, right? Everyone had their script of what they were supposed to say and do. But behind closed doors, I noticed that very few, if any, were happily married. very few, if any, had like strong, meaningful friendships, people that they could really trust. And it was really scary to witness, you know, how they'd handle fame and fortune. And I started realizing that being famous was kind of being enslaved. I realized that all of these artists that I performed with were always trying to impress other people and do what they were told, like puppets. And their lives were kind of like a fake show that was only, you know, scripted to sell albums and to create a buzz, right? I remember I was working with one artist, and he was seeing someone seriously. You know, he was in a romantic relationship, but there was an opportunity for him to go to a like a Grammy Awards show, and they wanted to have him go with another superstar to like create that buzz of, you know, the whole tabloid scene where everyone's like talking about, ooh, are they together, and what would they, you know, where were they going? And so I realized that this dream come true for these superstars was really like a nightmare. And I realized very quickly that if I didn't get out of this type of a lifestyle, that I probably was never going to marry a guy that I could ever trust. That's for sure. And I knew that I wanted to eventually settle down. I was involved in a romantic relationship with a non-Jew, and we ended up getting engaged. And to make a long story short, I found him in a hotel room with another woman, and that was the first big bomb that God gave me, which was so great. It was such a great bomb. The second big bomb that God gave me was that right when I was about to go out on a major tour with Gloria Estefan, like a world tour, it was probably going to be the biggest tour I'd ever been on, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And it was the biggest bomb. So I really started to kind of pull back from the music scene because I knew it wasn't all that. I'd already like gotten my fill. I had traveled like literally everywhere, and I was done with the really the trauma of what it was like to actually be in the music industry. For me, it was traumatic. I would say the most traumatic thing about it was just the promiscuity, the complete lack of respect or loyalty for anyone in a marriage or in any kind of a committed relationship. It was like a complete joke. And it was, I don't know, I really had to make some major changes. So after I got those two big bombs, the first one was like, okay, no more non-Jewish men. And the second bomb really was the one that made me think about life and what I wanted my life to look like. So I started really digging deep. I took my dad, I started talking to him about God, because, I mean, what else do you do when you've got that kind of a major challenge going on? You just wake up and you're like, okay, now what do we do? So we didn't really have any kind of Jewish education, but I started talking to my dad about God. So I'm like, okay, let's start going to temple. So we didn't know where to go. We ended up right by his house. There was a conservative shul. My dad and I went. It was all in Hebrew, and we knew we knew nothing, we didn't know what was going on at all. Everything was in Hebrew, we were lost. So we ended up in a Reformed temple, and there we really started to connect spiritually. The doctors gave my dad 3 to 6 months to live, and he lived a year and a half. And I am convinced that God gave my dad a year and a half, and he gave me that year and a half. So I could really contemplate what life is all about and what I want my life to look like. And I started asking myself very important questions, which we should all ask ourselves eventually in life, hopefully not with bombs like what happened with me. But sometimes you need a bomb to wake you up, and I know I needed bombs. Okay, so those bombs, as tragic as they were, became my biggest blessings, and I'm so grateful. As much as I miss my dad, I'm so grateful that I had those 2 events in my life. So, 3 weeks after my father passed away, I met an Orthodox rabbi. How did I meet him? I mean, that's kind of like, God just handing me an angel to take me to my next step. So my father's friend had come to visit him, and I saw that he was like a religious man, and I was like completely not religious. And he saw me there, and he's like, okay, what's your story? Like, where are you in life? And I'm like, oh, I want to learn about Torah. Can you take me somewhere? Like, I heard about this Torah. Like, it sounds super cool. Like, can you find me someone? So 3 weeks after my father passed away, I started learning with my Orthodox rabbi. And to this day, I still consider him my rabbi. He is a phenomenal angel, really, that God sent me, Rabbi Raphael Marlowe. And we basically would get together and we would learn Torah. Like, from the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? Literally. And we would get together, we would learn in a pizza shop, and I would just sit there and sob. So I sobbed for quite a while, and he, was really very supportive. And one thing that I didn't mention was that right at the beginning of my career, I'm gonna backtrack a couple years, like I was maybe 18, my sister from Israel came to visit me in the United States. And at this point, she had become completely religious. And I was like living in my, music industry dream come true land, right? So we sat at the dining room table, and she was like, okay, give me all your questions, and we went through them all. She talked to me about what Shabbat was, right? I was like, wow, that's like really cool. And she talked to me about modesty. She talked to me about what a Jewish marriage looks like, something called family purity laws, which is like, wow, if you've never heard of that, that's something to learn. Really cool stuff, awesome stuff. And everything that she said made sense to me, and it was logical, it sounded good, but I was like in the fork of the road, and I'm like, okay, dream come true, travel the world stadiums, or keep Shabbat. And at that time, at 18, I had to go through all the motions of what it was like to really live that dream. But fast forward several years, I was done. So back to Rabbi Marlowe. There we were, learning Torah, right? Asking him all these questions that I had about life, right? Everything is in the Torah. And what I realized was that it's not like this history book that doesn't apply to me. It's not false. It's divine. And all of the questions that I had about life and, you know, what my purpose is and what does a satisfying, fulfilling, happy life look like, all of those questions were being answered the more I learned. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. It was just like this endless fountain of wisdom and knowledge and inspiration. So little by little, I realized I have to keep Shabbat. Like, this is the source of blessing for the Jews. Right? This is happening every week. Like, I gotta plug into the Shabbat. What is this? But you know, when you're a dental hygienist or you work in an office 9 to 5, like, it's easy to keep Shabbat. Really. I was a performer. And I was still performing because that was what I did. That was all I ever did. So little by little, I had to figure out how I was going to keep Shabbat. So the first thing, I kind of dove into the pool and I decided to give up my Friday night gigs, because when you're a performer, you're working Friday and Saturday nights. That's basically your bread and butter. And that was a big step, giving up my Friday nights. But what I found was when I tapped into what Shabbat actually had to offer me, it was completely life-changing. There was a certain sense of peace and magic that I never felt anywhere else. It was a deep connection and something that I was longing for. And I realized that the more I learned about Shabbat and any of the commandments of the mitzvahs, the more I learned about them, the more connected to God I felt, the more spiritual I felt, and the more holy I felt. So I went through a huge internal transformation. I realized, that I was keeping my Friday nights, okay? I stopped performing on Friday nights, but Saturday night, I had also gigs. And what was I gonna do? Give up my Saturday night gigs? I mean, I was in a real bind. And what I was doing was kind of like keeping Shabbat, but then I would break Shabbos a little early to like go to my Saturday night gig. And it was like this real head trip, because there I was like on Shabbat, like, dressed modestly and going to a synagogue and praying, and I was behind the mechitza. Does anyone know what a mechitza is? What's a mechitza?
Like the little curtain that divides the men and the women.
Exactly, yeah. I was in the women's section, behind the mechitza, in this modest dress, with all these other ladies, like, praying. Like, wow, what a concept. People pray? Yeah, people pray. And it was the coolest experience. And I'll never forget it. And after that, I was like, I'm in. This is for me. I want more of this. I gotta have more of this in my life. So what I would do is I would break I was keeping my Friday nights and my Shabbos morning, and that was great. And then I had my Saturday night gig, and I'd have to break Shabbos early, change my outfit, and jump around on stage singing meaningless love songs to men and women. And there was just this like double life, as my rabbi told me. He's like, you're living a double life. So I kind of like was doing that for a year and a half, and my rabbi threw me onto a plane, and he said, you really need to figure yourself out. So I went to a place called Neve Yerushalayim in Israel. I studied there in a seminary for 7 months with the best teachers in the world. literally, world-renowned speakers, authors, educators, and it was awesome. There's just something magical about Israel. It makes you very clear about what is important in life, and it made me really strong. And I'll tell you a cool thing about Israel. The first day I got to seminary, I met with the rabbi there, and I told him I'm a professional singer. He's like, "You're a professional singer? Tonight there's a women's band performing. Okay, you have to go see them." I'm like, "A women's band? I've never even heard of a women's band." So I go to this huge auditorium, right? There's like hundreds of women there. There's no men. And I see the ladies on stage. There's like 10 ladies on stage, and they all have like these flowy, colorful, beautiful outfits on, and like headscarves, gorgeous, like they look like angels, really. And it was the coolest experience because there were no men around. And it was like a completely different energy. And I wasn't used to that. I was like, wow, like, this is different. So, needless to say, I started performing with them. And we traveled all around Israel. The coolest gig I ever did with them was I performed at a women's jail. Oh my gosh. That was the coolest.
Is that fun?
That was, should we like segue into the jail?
Yeah.
Okay, listen to what happened in the jail. This is the segue into the jail, okay? So we show up, we have our long skirts on, and we're carrying our microphones and the tambourines, and the chicks are there like, smoking, looking really angry, and what's these chicks gonna do for me? What are these chicks doing here? Very angry, like aggressive looking criminals. Like criminals, we're in a jail. And we were like a little, quite intimidated by them because they were like angry and really upset that we were there to like have fun with them and play our music for them. But that's the way it is, I guess, when you're in jail. So we're setting up our stuff, and they're like all checking us out, and we're trying to figure out how to not make them angrier. And basically we started our gig, our show, and the cool thing about this band and performing with Jewish bands and in a Jewish female environment was that all the songs were about like spirituality and unity and sisterhood and connecting to God and keeping Shabbat and the beauty of Shabbat, and just like all of these beautiful, holy subjects. Like they weren't like meaningless love songs about, she broke up with me and he left me for her, and just all of this like nonsense, it was like about God. I'm singing about God now, okay? And what happened was that we watched the faces of all the ladies in the jail that were like, there hanging out, and literally their faces just like transformed with the music and with just the vibe, and we literally started dancing together and singing together with the criminals. And literally, like, we were all at the end of it, like, arm in arm, crying together, laughing together. We were like sisters. We were sisters because that's what music does. That's what music does. So the experience that I had as a professional singer, now you have to remember, this was like my life. This was my career. So being in that type of an environment where I felt protected, I felt so inspiring and so inspired. like connecting soul to soul, right? I didn't feel like I was an object on stage getting checked out, right? It was such a different experience as a woman, So I was completely hooked on that experience, okay? And then I learned about this amazing commandment called Kol Isha. Does anyone know what Kol Isha is? Okay, so let's talk about Kol Isha, because this is a big thing for me. Kol Isha, Kol is the voice, and Isha is woman, the voice of a woman. Kol Isha.
Yeah, Kol Isha.
Kol Isha, Kol
Yeah,
Isha. You're Israeli?
My parents. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was trying to figure it out.
Kol Isha, Kol Isha.
Yeah.
How's that? Is that better? Okay, I gotta throw the Cuban in there. Kol Isha, Kol Isha. Okay, so Kol Isha, the voice of a woman, is very powerful. And it's very private. And it's very intimate. And it's very much a part of my essence. And that's something that needs to be kind of safeguarded. And when I experienced what it was like to be in a female environment, sharing my voice in that way, I realized, oh wow, so this is why God gave me a voice. This is why I have a voice. And it was deeply life-changing. So when I came back from Israel, I kind of had been there, very intensely learning, incorporating, all of the amazing concepts and mitzvahs, and just really digging deep in all these different areas. Modesty was another biggie for me, because, you can imagine, like, being in the entertainment industry, we weren't really dressed modestly. Like, actually, the whole point is to not be modest. So I was, like, trained to just not be modest. Like, that was just a part of, that was even more important than my voice. That was more important than my voice. Oh, and I didn't mention that my mother was a model in Cuba. Okay? So, like, even from my home, like, my mom was like, okay, your hair, your nails, your outfit, your working out, your figure, everything, body parts, it's all gotta look good. So it was like ingrained in me from a little girl, yeah, I gotta look good. Like, it's all about looking good, right? It's all about looking good. So I fit right into the music industry, and that worked, So when I learned about modesty, wow, what a concept! My gosh! Talk about transformative, right? I'll never forget this realization I had. I started, like, kind of switching over my wardrobe a bit, I started, like, taking out the jeans and the halter tops, and I started incorporating skirts, and I noticed, that when I was in the music industry, I wanted to really connect with people on a deep level. Like, I wanted to get deep, like, okay, what's going on inside, what's going on here? But, like, really, like, no one really cared. No one really cared about going deep, because it was all about externals. Right? They were too distracted with the externals. So when I learned about modesty, and I started actually, like, changing how I dressed, I noticed right away that not only did I feel different, but my relationships really changed. I noticed that people just spoke to me differently, looked at me differently, and I carried myself differently. Right? And I started behaving differently, because modesty is not just about what you have on, what kind of clothing you have on, or what's covered. It's also about your behavior and your refinement and how you treat others and how you speak. right? So this concept of modesty was like a big one for me. Kol Isha, tznius, modesty, right? These are two biggies. And then I learned about what's called family purity laws. Oh, has anyone ever heard of those family purity laws?
Yes.
Very cool. That was for me the clincher, because remember, in the music industry, it was all about very promiscuous, really an animalistic lifestyle. And I'm not sugarcoating it anymore. It was bad. It was disgusting. And when I learned about family purity laws and Shomer Negia, who knows what Shomer Negia is? Yeah, what's Shomer Negia?
It's when you're like dating or until marriage, you don't touch.
Woo! Yeah! Don't touch. What a concept! Wait a minute, you're dating a guy and you don't touch? Hold on a minute. That is a head trip. So I was like, this is incredible stuff. Like, these Jews, they really know what we're doing. I was like blown away by Shomer Negia. I'm like, wait a minute, guys date you and they don't touch you? I gotta find these guys. So I kept learning about Shomer Negia, and I kept learning about modesty and what it means to be the daughter of a king. What does it mean? To be a daughter of a king. The king. The one and only king. I was flying. I got really, really connected. And when I learned about family purity laws, which is the whole beautiful system of when you're married, times that you can be with your spouse, and times that you're not with your spouse. Whoa, you're married and you're not with your spouse? That's like major head trip. But it was so awesome because I realized this is how to keep your marriage fresh. And this is how you get to know your spouse on a really deep level, right? Your spouse isn't just your lover. Your spouse is your best friend. Your spouse is like your brother, right? Because there are times that you're just not touching. So you're literally forced by God to develop other aspects of your marriage and of your relationship, which really make it a fully rounded, beautiful marriage. Beautiful marriage. And that was my dream. Thank God. I just celebrated my 24th wedding anniversary with my husband. And I have to say, marriage, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, a lot of work. Okay? But the work that I did in my marriage was transformative. It turned me into a completely different person that I never knew I could be. And this work was very humbling. You know, I went from like performing in stadiums to like being a Jewish mom in my kitchen checking for bugs in my green vegetables, you know. And I have to tell you, I felt so blessed that I got out. And that I was saved from literally that hell. And I want to tell you that I really went through this process for myself because I needed it and I wanted it and I had a vision for what I wanted my life to look like. But now I have to tell you, the byproduct of what my journey gave me. It gave me 3 beautiful Torah observant children who are now married. And I'm gonna be a grandma soon. I can't believe it. It's amazing. I literally cannot believe it. So I'm sharing this all with you, okay? It's a lot of personal information, and I'm sharing it gladly with an open heart because I deeply, deeply believe that we go through our life and we go through our challenges to learn and to share them. And what I went through, okay, I'm sharing because I want everyone in this room and everyone that's listening to understand that just because you were a certain way yesterday, you behaved a certain way yesterday, you dressed a certain way yesterday, you were in a certain relationship yesterday, you had a certain job yesterday, doesn't mean that you've got any of that today. You can become a completely different person slowly, slowly, slowly. Right? Gotta do it slowly. So at this point, I want to open it up to questions. I brought my scrapbook so that you guys can kind of take a look at some funky, cool pictures in there of when I was much younger, performing, and there are a couple shots in stadiums there. We did shows with Prince and Tina Turner. Have you guys heard of Prince and Tina Turner? Okay. There's some, some cute pictures in there, and then there's the transformation of me covering my hair. Oh, that's another one I didn't mention. Covering my hair. Kisui rosh. Kisui rosh. Kisui, I guess, crown? Covering rosh, head. Covering head. Yes. Yes, it's question time.
Okay, so I know like men who you're not married to can't see your hair, but like when you do the scrapbook, aren't guys seeing your hair?
Right. Yes, that's a very good question.
What did you say?
Yeah, can you repeat that?
So if you're not married, then men can't see your hair. I mean, it's like your husband, but like right now, men are looking through it. And
Right.
Right. So at the time, that's a great question, by the way. When I took those pictures, I was not married. So it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, look, there are many different levels. There might be some people that would say, no, you cannot show anyone your hair. But what happened to me is that after October 7th, I feel like there's this enormous calling for us to really share and reach out to all types of Jews. All types of Jews from everywhere. Doesn't matter what you look like, where you live, how you were raised, what you wear, what you don't wear, what you eat. And I really started sharing on a much deeper level and showing these pictures because I didn't ever used to show these pictures. These were private pictures. I actually had them hidden in my house because I didn't want my kids to find them. Okay? But now I show them specifically because I think it's important for women and men to see what modesty and what Torah can do to you. And
Or for you.
right, can do for you, right? And in this world where we're just so confused and everything is just upside down and backwards, I personally feel that Torah is the anchor and the absolute truth that keeps me grounded. That's the only thing that keeps me grounded, and it's the only thing that I can rely on. And thank God we have amazing rabbis, right? Rabbi Weiss, Rabbi Goldstein, Rabbi Feder, right? Rabbi Marlowe, amazing rabbis here to teach you anytime. And look at all these amazing books we have in the library. I mean, check them out. It's awesome stuff. Yes.
How did you meet your husband?
Oh, great question. How did I meet my husband? You'd never believe it.
I want to
A
know.
matchmaker.
Wow.
A matchmaker. Of course. Of course, a matchmaker.
Tell how it happens.
Okay, so this is what happens. I actually now am a matchmaker.
Wow.
This is something that I do. It's so much fun. I absolutely love it. Okay, so my husband went to the rabbi of the seminary at Neve, where I went in Israel, and he said, I'm looking for my wife. And he has a whole database of women. He went on his computer, he started saying, okay, what are you looking for? And slowly but surely,
So you
we were set
communicated
up.
by computer?
Yeah, well, so the rabbi had all the women that he had their information, you know, what they were looking for, details about them. And then my husband came and he's like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And to make a long story short, 13 dates, and we were engaged
Wow.
without touching. We actually didn't touch until we were married. It was hard, I have to admit, it was hard. Yeah. Oh, there's something else called the laws of Yichud. Has anyone ever heard of those? The laws of Yichud.
Well, what is it?
Okay. The laws of Yichud, awesome stuff. Listen to this, how much God loves us. Listen to how much God loves us. Okay? The laws of Yichud tell you, right, how to protect yourself from being alone, secluded with someone of the opposite gender. Okay? So it's really a protection. Why? Because God knows that men and women really like each other. Right? It's like, it's just in our makeup. He created us. So he created, knowing us, how much we like each other, right? He created the laws of Yichud to make sure that a woman cannot be secluded in a place by herself with a man that's not her husband.
Well, so how do you get to know him if you can't even talk to him? I mean,
Oh,
you can
definitely
talk to him,
talk.
but you just can't touch.
Can't
So you can be in the room with him, but you just can't touch.
Right, and you cannot be in Yichud
Yeah.
with him. You
Oh,
cannot
so
be
you have to be
alone.
somebody
No,
else.
you have to be in a public environment.
Oh.
Yeah, you have to be in a public environment, and that's protection. That's protection for you. It keeps it very, how can I say, keeps it very safe, right? It's beautiful. It was awesome. What a great dating experience. Thank God. And imagine what that first touch was like in the Yichud room. The Yichud room. Right? Because after you go through the ceremony of getting married under the chuppah, the wedding canopy, you go into the Yichud room and you're alone for the first time.
What happens?
Ooh, what happens? Whatever you want because you're married now. Which is
So you don't go into the...
You go into the Yichud room
Until
you're married, right?
Until you're
After you're married and he puts the ring on your finger.
then you can go.
Yeah, then you go into the Yichud room. And it's so special, right? Imagine how special that is. That's actually magical. Where do you find it? Where can you get that? Nowhere. But you could get it with Judaism. Any other questions?
How important was that female singing experience at that stage of your life, being that you had just kind of given up on the other aspect of your career?
Yeah. So the cool thing about my career is that I took all of my skills, all of my experience and my talent, and I completely dove into the Kol Isha, right? The female-only music industry, which is really awesome now.
Do you still do that?
Yeah.
So you still sing?
Yeah, I still sing.
That's
Yeah, I got a couple gigs coming up. That's right.
And your daughters.
And my daughters sing with me.
That's so great.
It's crazy awesome. It's crazy awesome. It's beautiful. Yeah. So my career, I'm happy you asked that question. It's funny because I actually mentor girls now that have a lot of talent and they don't know what to do with themselves in this, with this situation with Kol Isha, right? But they really want it. They just don't know how to maneuver, right? So I coach them and I teach them how to develop themselves as a performing artist within Kol Isha. And it's thriving. It's thriving because women need inspiration. And it's so awesome to be able to share that on such a deep level with women. And we just connect like sisters. We literally it's beautiful.
Do you know Yafa Pelti?
Yes,
You do?
sure.
Wow.
Yes. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Okay.